Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's just jump right in. Today, we're going to unpack the actual architecture of business. Every single organization out there, from the tiny little corner shop down the street to massive global enterprises, well, they all fit into a very specific structural framework. And in this explainer, we're going to map out exactly what that framework looks like by exploring business sectors, operations, and ownership. We're going to make the whole shebang crystal clear.
But hey, before we get bogged down in the academic definitions, let's ground this in the real world for a second. Have you ever actually thought about the epic journey a simple potato chip takes before hitting your taste buds? I mean, it doesn't just magically poof into a bag in your pantry. To make that one single chip, multiple distinct stages of business have to coordinate perfectly. Keep that chip in mind as we go, because it's literally the perfect key to unlocking how business sectors actually work.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll explore the three business sectors. Second, formal and informal sectors. Third, public and private sectors. Fourth, we'll test your business knowledge. And finally, we'll zoom out to look at the bigger picture.
Section 1. The three business sectors, from Earth to consumer. Let's start by looking at what businesses actually do on a day-to-day basis. As our source material points out, there are three fundamental stages in the production process for absolutely any physical good. Step 1 is the extraction of raw materials. Step 2 is the processing of those materials into products. And Step 3 is the transfer of those finished products to you, the consumer. Every physical product you own went through this exact logical sequence. Let's take that very first stage of production and give it a formal name: the primary sector. This sector deals directly with extracting raw materials and natural resources right out of the earth. Going back to our potato chip analogy, the primary sector is the agricultural farm where the potatoes are planted, grown, and pulled straight from the dirt. It is the absolute starting line of the entire economy. Now let's move to the next step and see how this builds. Once those potatoes are harvested, they enter the secondary sector. This sector is entirely focused on processing raw materials into finished goods. This is where the heavy lifting and manufacturing happens, In our analogy, this is the factory where those raw potatoes are washed, sliced, fried, seasoned, and sealed into airtight bags. They take the output of the primary sector and transform it into something completely new. And finally, we reach the tertiary sector. Our source defines this as the sector that renders services to other businesses or provides auxiliary services. Essentially, this covers the critical transfer step. Our bagged potato chips need to be transported by delivery trucks, marketed by advertising agencies, and ultimately sold by retail grocery stores. All of those service-based businesses, the transport, the retail, the marketing, they sit firmly in the tertiary sector. Section 2. Formal and informal sectors. How businesses operate. Now that we understand the three stages of what businesses actually make, let's shift gears and look at how they operate. The source notes really emphasize that we need to understand the stark difference between formal and informal sectors. The crucial point here is regulation and visibility. The formal sector includes registered businesses that pay taxes and are monitored by the government. Think of a massive corporate supermarket chain. The informal sector, however, consists of unrecorded, often unregistered economic activities, like a local independent street vendor selling snacks on the corner. Both are absolutely essential to the economy, but they operate under completely different sets of rules. Here's a highly specific, practical pro tip from our source document. When you're analyzing this topic for an assessment, always format your comparisons in a table. Why? Because visually separating the characteristics makes your reasoning incredibly clear. It lets you map out the distinctions at a glance. A table is honestly your absolute best friend when you're trying to structurally contrast formal and informal operations. Section 3. Public and private sectors. Who owns the business? Okay, so we've covered what businesses do and how they're regulated, but who actually owns them? Well, the private sector consists of businesses owned by individual citizens or private groups, and they're usually driven by the core motive to make a profit. On the flip side, the public sector consists of organizations, departments, and enterprises owned and operated by the government. Their primary goal generally isn't profit, but rather providing essential infrastructure and services to the citizens of the country. Section 4. Test your business knowledge. Real-world scenarios. All right, it's time to put all of this theory into practice. Our source document issues a really clear warning. To master this, you need to be able to spot the action words. We've got two quick business scenarios here. First, we have Lungi Travel Agency, or LTA, which is providing transport services for local tours. Second, we have Nikkei Manufacturers, or NM, which specializes in the manufacturing of school uniform. Take a second. Look closely for those action words. Based on what we just learned about extraction, processing, and services, which business sectors do these two organizations belong to? Let's break it down together. For Linji Travel Agency, the key action phrase in the text is providing transport services. Services always point us straight to the tertiary sector. For Nikkei Manufacturers, the key word is literally right there in the name and description, manufacturing. Taking raw materials and processing them into uniforms places them squarely in the secondary sector. So the big takeaway here is to always scan your text for those active verbs. They are dead giveaways for accurate sector classification. And finally, Section 5, the bigger picture, values and sustainability.
To wrap up our explainer today, we really need to elevate our view beyond just memorizing academic definitions. Our source material makes a very intentional point at the end of the lesson to connect these business concepts to core human values, specifically highlighting caring and responsibility. Because, let's face it, business isn't just some abstract machine. It exists in the real physical world, and how these sectors operate has profound, lasting consequences. We absolutely have to care about the systems we build and take responsibility for our role within them. So what are the real-world stakes here? The source states it plainly. We have to learn how vitally important it is to protect our resources in the primary sector. If we just extract blindly and without care, our natural resources are going to be completely depleted. The text specifically calls out our responsibility for conserving vital resources that businesses and individuals use every single day, like water. The primary sector might be the starting line for the economy, but the Earth's resources are definitely finite. Which brings us to our final, somewhat provocative thought for the day. I want you to look around the room you're in right now. Pick any physical object near you and try to mentally trace its entire journey backward. From the tertiary retail store where you bought it, back to the secondary factory that processed it, all the way back to the primary sector that literally pulled it from the earth. What specific natural resources did it cost our planet to put that item in your hands? Keep that question in mind the next time you make a purchase. Thanks so much for exploring the architecture of business with me today.